Welcome to Business Notes. I'm your host, Diane Bogino. Our guest today is Vicki Louter. Vicki is passionate about helping leaders and their employees learn and grow. Since 2001, her company, Strategic Human Insights, has provided solutions for growing companies to hire more accurately, manage their employees more effectively, and grow more efficiently. Vicki, welcome to Business Notes, and thank you for being on the show today.
I'm really excited to be here, Diane. I'm excited to chat with you. And I'm in my East Coast office. You see my art behind me.
Yes, I love it.
Some of my friends that keep me company while I'm working.
I love all the colors there. That's great. So, Vicki, tell our audience, why did you start your business?
Well, originally, it was my husband who recommended that I start my business. He was the one that said, I had worked for two large consulting firms, and we were getting close to 1999. Y2K was looming, and the firm that I was working for had, was really focused more on technology. Companies were not really they weren't really buying technology, so technology wasn't being implemented. And then we had all these, administrative people. I was part of the people team, right? And they ended up putting me on a project where I managed all of the recruiting for the Bell South outsourced project. Yes, going to that building on West Peachtree Street in Atlanta was like going to the Death Star every day. I mean, it was just soul sucking. And, and my husband was the one that said, listen, I know you want to be a good employee for somebody. You're just never going to be a good employee. I love you, honey, but you're never going to be a good employee for somebody. You just need to go on your own. And I didn't listen to him at the time, because I was just like, well, everything's sort of unknown. And so I went to work for a startup, and they were funded by Canada. And then the Canadian, in 2000, the Canadian dollar wasn't doing very well at the time. So then you fast forward, I worked for another company, and finally in 2001, I said, okay, enough, uncle, I'll do it. And then, and then 9/11 happened. So, so what happened is in 2002, January 2002 is really when I hung my shingle out. And I know a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm a hybrid. And what I mean by that is I'm not alien, but I have HR background and I have recruiting background. And, in the world of human resources, people usually pick one or the other to go into. I like the big umbrella. And when you work with a small company, you have the option, you can do kind of both. So I actually hung my shingle out, and I was starting to do some contract HR work. And then I got contacted by a previous colleague of mine who was now in healthcare. She knew that I had previous healthcare recruiting and search experience. And so she said, can you help us with a couple of searches? And that's really how I got started. And then, then I morphed probably about, like 7 years later, when I found out about some of the TTI assessments through another VAA, and sort of started morphing my business into more consulting, more talent management consulting.
Right. And for the edification of our audience, TTI is Target Training International, just so we can give them a little plug.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Our acronyms, right? We got to be careful about that.
And you just make a great point about keeping up with your networking, because a former colleague called you and you got some business. So that's great.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really how it all started. And then it was like, okay, so I really focused for a long time straight on retained executive search for the healthcare industry. But then, like I said, when I met another, TTI associate, I got introduced to the tools, and that's really what started me sort of on the journey of, the tools are just one piece. It's just a way to get information. It's not the end game.
Right. So what are some of the key reasons that companies hire you to come in, Vicky?
Well, everybody's still having challenges hiring people, right? So I no longer do the actual search and recruiting and hiring for them. But what I do is I help them make better hires, right? By either helping them benchmark their job um, and figure out what the key attributes are, as well as, what behaviors are going to really work for that job. And then, I just help them make better hiring decisions. And then I work with them on teaming. Oh gosh, redesigning, because I focus on talent acquisition, or excuse me, talent management. It's really all about, some companies hire me to help them redesign their whole talent management process. Now we're talking about small companies. We're not talking about GE or, IBM or anybody like that. And, so it could be a piece of, it could be a performance management piece. It could be, let's look at the succession planning piece, or it could be everything from, the entry, how do we hire people? How do we onboard them? How do we, how do we develop them? And then what do we do about developing them for ultimate succession planning?
Focusing on employee challenges, Vicky, what are some of the more common challenges that you find that companies are struggling with today?
Yeah, well, I would say, first of all, hiring good people is still the number one challenge. But now that you've got people that are working remotely, you've got, employees are, depending on their situation, are just really distracted, right? They're trying to be focused on work as much as they can, but then they've got kids, that are in the other room. And if they're small kids, they're not going to be sitting at the computer very long. So, you've got those sorts of things, those challenges, mental health. I mean, let's just call it out. The pandemic is grinding. I don't care if you're at home with kids or not home with kids. My husband and I are working in the same space, and we love each other, been married for a long time, but it's like, whoa, I'll be glad when you can go back to the office. It's like you just need some space, right? So I think those are some issues. And I think that while some companies have been able to get very efficient with their employees, the remote, everybody initially embraced that, right? Because I even worked with companies years ago that said, I will never allow my employees to work from home. Well, never say never is what I say. So, I just think that they're just still struggling with all of those things. And they're struggling with, do we make the employees get a vaccine before they come back to the office? How do we, so just look out. There's going to be all kinds of lawsuits flying all around. I mean, it's just, there's no easy answers here. And I always like to say, the problems are always with the numbers. Solutions are always with the people, but it's never, it's never just a immediate, easy kind of thing. You have to sort of, work through these things and talk about them. Those are just some of the challenges that everybody's going through right now.
How have you found that some of these companies are able to keep their employees focused during all of this?
Some companies are actually using, engagement surveys, work from home surveys, helping, so that they can help their teams understand, what's your behavioral style and where will you potentially get derailed, right? It's just a minor thing. I had one CEO say to me when this was early on in the pandemic, when they had sent everybody home and we did the work from home assessment. He came back and he said, wow, this was a good reminder that even I have blind spots. And if I'm not careful, I can go down a rabbit hole, or I can be working on something that's really not important to the business. And so those are some of the ways companies have been, just keeping their employees engaged and interested. And I think some other companies are not only doing that, but they're also doing things like sending small gifts, gift cards and things like that. Like, listen, we know it's a struggle. We know, here's just a little something, order pizza online, or, that sort of thing, just to, help them sort of realize, like, yes, we might not be in the same office building, and yes, we're seeing each other virtually, but we're not forgetting about you. We know that things are tough. I mean, for everybody, it's just not easy.
Good ideas. What skills do you find that leaders have had to bring to the table now?
Oh gosh, yeah. Empathy and vulnerability, I think, are two big keys. Um, I always like to say that the future of work is this afternoon. Could be as close as 2 o'clock this afternoon, right? So I think that employees want their leaders. I mean, we always wanted our leaders to be upfront and honest with us, right? And transparent. But now it's even more important. Um, if employees don't feel the trust, if they don't feel, they feel like the leadership is holding something back, like employees know whether you're in the office or not in the office, you get a sense of something's happening. I don't know what it is, but I can just feel it. It's energy. You can just feel it on the airways, right? You might be on a Zoom call with your team lead and you're like, okay, this was weird. Something's happening. What's going on? They just want transparency, and they want to see that their leaders are human.
Very
Yeah.
important. Now, I know that you work with smaller companies and you help them in their growth process. And at what stage do companies typically bring you in during that growth process?
Yeah, I've worked with companies with as little as like 6 to 10 employees, right? And those are companies that generally have a little bit of money that they can bring somebody in, an extra pair of hands, because they normally, those companies are, everybody's all hands on deck. And so everybody's kind of doing everything, but everybody doesn't always have, the talent management or the HR background to actually do that work. And then I've worked with, companies as large as, 500. When they start to get a little bit larger than that, I'm really focused more on the teams within the larger companies. And sometimes it's the owner, the founder that will bring me in, and sometimes it's the CFO, and sometimes it's the operations person. It just all depends on who does talent recruiting actually report to in the organization, and it's never the same. It's always different.
Oh, well, that leads me to my next question. It's a good segue. What types of companies do you typically work with?
Yeah, I usually work with, I have a lot of technology clients, and I'm going to call them web-based technology clients, right? So they've got some kind of solution that is web-based that other companies are using, and they could be in the finance space, it could be in the human resource space. I work a lot with, believe it or not, I work a lot with search firms. And I don't know if it's because I have a previous search firm background that people are like, okay, I think she really understands how all this works. And normally they'll bring me in when they've got, clients that have narrowed their candidate pool down, and they want to just sort of get more information about each of those candidates. And then I also work with, other professional services firms, marketing firms. So it's just sort of a wide variety of industries that I've actually worked with, which has been kind of fun. Banks, I mean, yeah, kind of interesting. They're all different, Diane, you know that.
That's for sure. But how have you seen your clients' needs change over the years? And piggybacking onto that, how do you think they're going to change going forward?
Well, I think that people are finally starting to figure out that it really is a global economy. I mean, you throw a pandemic in there, and then you've got all these employees that want to work from maybe home offices in San Francisco, but I want to move to Iowa because I just want a better, quality of life, and everything I'm going to do is online anyway, right? And since 2014, I've been trying to let companies know, like, you think your competition is in your backyard, but it's really not. It really is global. And, I just marvel at the fact that employers never learn when it's an employer market, they, treat candidates horribly. They, don't get back to them, et cetera. And now it's an employee market, and I hear clients and companies complaining that we've been ghosted by 10 candidates. We made an offer, people don't show up. I mean, this is not gonna go away. Even when the pandemic is over and everybody who's gonna get a vaccine actually gets a vaccine, and people come back to the office part-time or whatever it happens to be, these are still gonna be challenges. Parts of the economy will probably come back a lot faster than others. And then we have this whole other segment, and I don't work with the restaurant industry, but, I know I have a lot of favorite restaurants, right? Independent restaurants, and they're struggling. So, hopefully those will come back, soon, just because, these are people that really care about the business. But I just think that those are just a few of the challenges that companies are going to continue to see even long after the pandemic is considered over.
Vicki, we talked about things like that are going on in the workplace and about empathy, but we still have to maintain accountability. And I would like to hear what you might offer employers balancing that thin line between empathy and being accountable, holding employees accountable.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of situations where, let me just give a caveat. The first thing that I would recommend to a team lead or an executive is find out if the person's not meeting their responsibilities, find out, is it related to their home life situation, right? May have sick family members, kids, whatever, right? You just don't know. So that would be the first thing. So if that's not the case, then my recommendation would be find out what can you help them, can you get them additional resources, right? If you can't get them additional resources, right, because it doesn't make sense for whatever reason, then you need to really start digging into, is this somebody that's just burned out and they just don't want to do this job anymore? Has the job outgrown them? Have they not grown with the job? I think there are lots of steps that you need to take, but at some point you are going to have to make a call. Like, listen, we may have to put you on a performance plan, right? Or let's get on a performance plan and let's lay these things out, because sometimes people are just overwhelmed, right? But you have to dig in, you have to ask a lot of questions. I would highly recommend, don't assume something, right? I have seen situations where team managers have not given feedback to their employees. And all of a sudden, we've seen it, you've seen it, you've heard about it. You probably saw it in corporate America when you worked there too. They're like, all of a sudden, your manager's coming to you saying, well, we're getting rid of you, or you're getting a call from HR, come whatever. And you're like, this is the first I've heard of it. What do you mean? No, don't do that. Don't play those games. Have the critical conversation, right? Have it up front, and figure out, is the job different? Has the job outgrown the person? You can use assessments. That's one way to get additional information, right? So those would just be a few steps that I would recommend. If you feel like somebody's struggling and they're not meeting their responsibility, you have to hold people accountable, because what happens is other people see that you are not holding them accountable. And then I will tell you, employees are voting with their feet and they are exiting. And believe me, lots of companies are looking for really good people. There's a lot of job openings right now for a lot of, professional type positions.
You offer talent management, you offer communication training, team building, employee development, professional consulting. Have I missed anything?
New manager training. That's a really good one. That's a very important one. I have several people that have been promoted to new managers that, are subject matter experts, and they're kind of like deer in the headlights, right? Because 2 days ago they were peers with these people, and now they've been elevated to a manager. So, so that's really helpful to just give somebody just at least the framework, because nobody comes out of the womb being a great manager or a great leader, right?
And speaking of that, if a company does want to hire you, what is the quickest way? Because you do have the 3 locations. What's the quickest way for them to get in touch with
Oh
you?
yeah, they can, check me out on LinkedIn. Of course, I'm, Vicki Z. Louder. You can go to my website, strategichumaninsights.com. All my contact information is there, email.
Great. Well, I hope that people get in touch with you because you bring a lot of good tools to help people, help companies perform better, help them grow more efficiently. So I thank you for your time today, Vicki.
Oh, this was fun. Thank you, Diane. I really appreciate it. I always love chatting with you anyway. So this was, thanks for letting me just share my information and share my knowledge.
Thank you for watching Business Notes. We've been speaking with Vicki Louder of Strategic Human Insights. I'm your host, Diane Bogino, bringing you business ideas you can bank on.